me and the Lord, we got an understanding.
We're on a mission from God.
Well, good morning, good people. Mark Holmes here with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as the Funky Chicken. And as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. Hope everybody's having a great day. It is hump day. It is time to get over the hump. And, of course, we have all kinds of things going on here with the Dallas Cowboys. You know, it's great being a Dallas Cowboys YouTuber because there's always so much stuff that you have to talk about. It's insane how much goes on. And even when there's not stuff going on, stuff's kind of being made up. You know, it's that time of year where automatically you're going to start seeing the workout videos and things. And we'll start there. We got the workout videos. We get the Dak rumors. We get, of course, the Stephen Jones. We get the Micah Parsons, trade Micah. And then we've got the crazy trades or the proposed trades and all that of every player that's always coming to the Dallas Cowboys because that's the only place people go. And that the Dallas Cowboys are always freewheeling and dealing draft picks and players. And then we throw into the mix Tyron Smith being signed by the Cowboys with a one-day contract where he will retire as a Dallas Cowboys player. Dak Prescott, I always got your back as you had mine. Tyron Smith, whose hands were so big, it made the football look like a softball in his hands. Tyron Smith, who was so big that he had to use a knee brace as an elbow brace. A guy who was incredible. In his younger seasons, we remember seeing him just take that left hand and just throw a guy out the way. An incredible warrior that I wish had gotten a Super Bowl ring, and definitely one of the best offensive linemen that the Dallas Cowboys have ever had. But now it's on to the next generation. And we'll see if Tyler Smith, Tyler Guyton, can live up to that Great Wall of Dallas, the Cooper Beebes, the Brock Hoffmans, the Terrence Steeles. It's their time now. And of course, going through, it's that time of year where workouts are the big thing. We don't have the Zeke Elliott working out anymore. No, we don't have those anymore. But we got the Ceedee Lamb. Oops, turn that music off before I get copywritten. There we go. Boom. Ceedee looked like he ready. Getting that work in. Ceedee looked like he ready. Go Ceedee, go Ceedee. Looking fast. Looking fast. I'm trying to figure out how they come up with these. So I guess that's to simulate having somebody draped on your arms and you're having to, the bands are holding you back there, I guess. But Ceedee is definitely putting in the work. All right, so we got that. So back to Dak Prescott. I got my coffee this morning. I'm downstairs, I'm getting my coffee, and I go through. I try to look at everything. Okay, I get all kinds of news alerts, and some of the stuff always seems to be like a little bit late. It's like I already talked about that, but I got this one that let's see, where is it? I got an injury update. And the headline was, NFL World reacts to horrible Cowboys injury update. And I was like, oh, shit. What? I'm like, what? What? What are we? Who? Is it Diggs? Is it Overshown? What's the horrible news? Did somebody else get hurt in OTAs? I'm sitting there having a heart attack waiting for my coffee. The Dallas Cowboys had the entire season derailed by injuries to their star players. Star pass rusher Micah Parsons missed significant time due to injury. And I was like, oh, Micah got hurt? And it's like, no. And wide receiver Ceedee Lamb. Look, did Ceedee Lamb get hurt? Arguably the best receiver in the NFL had his season cut short due to injury to his shoulder. And so I'm like, what happened? What happened? They weren't the only ones either. Star quarterback Dak Prescott, the face of the franchise these days, had his season cut short, as well as a brutal hamstring injury, and saw his hamstring come off the bone. Yeah, we know that. All right, so what's the horrible news? On Monday, news came in about the state of Prescott's injury, but it's not the sort of news Cowboys fans want to hear. And I was like, did I miss something? More than 5 months later, Dak Prescott's hamstring isn't fully healed, which makes it far more severe than the usual hamstring injury, Pro Football Talk reported. I actually talked about this, I believe, Monday night. I actually played the clip of them, of those jackasses who are supposed to be experts. They're supposed to be experts, and they actually didn't know the severity of the injury that he had, and they acted like this was brand new news. Maybe the Milton trade is worth a little bit more now, considering he'll be starting quarterback with Dak out. Referring to Joe Milton, who's the Cowboys traded for this offseason. Joe Milton is behind Will Greer. Dak and Cousins have had similar careers, masters of getting paid with little playoff success, somebody wrote. He's washed. They badly need to draft a good one, another fan added. It will be interesting if Prescott manages a full recovery by the time training camp arrives. Okay. This is how shit gets started. Mike Furriello was the same guy who said there might be a tape out there of Dez Bryant that's 6 times worse than the Ray Rice, and started this whole slander campaign that even Adam Schefter got in on. So it was crazy to me because we all know, if you cover the Cowboys or talk about the Cowboys, you know that the hamstring was not just a hamstring strain. It was a Luvian tear, which means it was pulled completely off the bone. Dak's update was actually a good update for where he is, because he had said he could play a game. We've seen him out on the field. He's at OTAs. But if you listen to Pro Football Talk, those jackasses, as my dad would always say, those jackasses were acting like this is, oh my God, he's not healed yet? This must be severe. Yeah, damn right it was severe. We all knew this. But this is the kind of stuff that's out there these days that, you know, everybody and their sister, you know, we get 3 or 4 or 5 a day of crazy stories that, you know, the Cleveland Browns are in, you know, negotiation. The guy doubled down for trading for Dak Prescott. We get, of course, all of the trade rumors of packages that the Cowboys are going to do. We hear that the Cowboys are going to trade up to get Travis Hunter and only have to give up their first, a second, and a fifth. So it's kind of like there is no truth in advertising when it comes to now football talk. Everything is just clickbait. And I guess that's because so many people are in the space that normal stories just don't cut it anymore. You have to come up with something crazy for people to listen. And that's actually really sad. Now, back to Dak Prescott here as far as he's going to be ready for the season. And I'm going to tell you he's going to have a great one because every time he's had a major injury the next year, he has played outstanding. And I look and see that he is a man on a mission right now, and he is truly taking the leadership role. He is doing everything to get his body, his mind right, and getting his teammates on board with him. They're there working out, while some quarterbacks aren't even sure which team they want to go to, Aaron Rodgers. And he's also trying to calm the troops. When talking about Micah Parsons and his contract situation, he said, I'm very confident in Micah Parsons and what he can do. Who he is and what he wants to and who he wants to is as important as anything. And that is being a leader. I don't have the full answer for it, or I think all of mine would have been done a lot earlier. I thought mine would have been done a lot earlier than they were. For him, just stay positive, understand, and make sure that the team knows what he wants and what he believes. And this is where I still believe that the Cowboys should look at this and say, we're turning over a new leaf, and we don't need to see any more leaves fall, okay? We know that Micah Parsons is valuable. If you don't know that by now, if you think you need to wait till the end of the summer to see if Micah Parsons is worth their money, then you're in the wrong business. He's there, he's working out, he's saying the right things, he performs on the field. There should be no question at all. If you went ahead and re-signed Osa and Digazua, then there's no reason that you wouldn't sign Micah Parsons. Get the thing done. It's only going to cost you more if you don't. So that's my thoughts on that. Now, we've got Stephen Jones, of course, talking about the art of the deal. And he literally said, talking about Micah Parsons' contract, when asked about Micah Parsons' contract negotiations, we're going to spend to the cap year in and year out. Over the course of time, we're going to spend our money to try and get as many good players as we can. That's the art of the deal. Okay, well, let's say we have $37 million right now. Micah Parsons' cap hit for this year is $24 million. And if we get this deal done, we'll actually get more cap space. And so this is where the Cowboys should be looking to say, let's get this thing done before T.J. Watt gets his and the price goes up another, $4 or $5 million. Let's get this thing done. Let's keep him happy and so on. But, somebody kind of pointed out that the Cowboys, they don't like to pay people early in the season because I think they're worried that they're going to go out and do something crazy because they got the newfound money and everything else. You ain't got to worry about that with Micah Parsons. You ain't got to worry about that with Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons comes from good stock. He knows the difference between right and wrong, and he understands his brand, and he is not going to screw the pooch on that. You can get that guy taken care of, and you should get him taken care of sooner than later. So that's where we are with most of the stuff that's going on here. We can hope that the Cowboys get things right in the draft. We have a week and 1 day. I can't believe it's next week. A week and 1 day until the draft, and I can't wait till it happens. We're going to have a draft party at the Man Cave and things. What the Cowboys, I believe, have set themselves up for is they have, for once, it doesn't feel like we have the Cowboys locked in a player, at least perception-wise, where teams are going to know that's the guy the Cowboys are coveting. Well, I covet him too, so that means I need to make a move to get that guy now because the Cowboys are going to get him. And we lose out on players that we may want. This year, I don't think the Cowboys are really laser-focused on one particular person. I think that they would love to be able to get the running back, wide receiver, and things, but I think that they're going to take this first-round pick as Stephen Jones kind of pointed out, we don't see this moving up in the draft. We more see this possibly trading back. That's if there's somebody to trade back with. The big unknown is the quarterbacks are going to be the wild card. Do the Giants, who did a private workout yesterday with Shedeur, do they decide we're going to take Shedeur Sanders and put him in there with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston? Or are they going to say we're okay for another year, we're going to wait till down the road, we're going to use these guys that we just signed and pass on them, and then all of a sudden Shedeur starts dropping maybe to like New Orleans, and has Jackson Dart raise his stock as well? Because we know that right now with Aaron Rodgers, we're hearing rumors that he really doesn't want to play for the Steelers and is hoping that Minnesota gets him. We'll make a deal. Does the Steelers try and trade down and get into one of these quarterbacks? And so that's the unknown of how this thing is going to fall, is we just don't know what's going to happen with the quarterbacks. And if 3 quarterbacks happen to go before us, then more than likely you might end up having an outstanding defensive lineman or a great cornerback. There's so many options out there that you can't get laser focused and saying we got to get a running back or a wide receiver. Because whenever we have drafted for a need out of desperation, Taco Charlton, Tyler Guyton, it hasn't worked for us. The players haven't worked out, at least not yet. When we've drafted best player available, see Micah Parsons and trading back, see Ceedee Lamb, we have been getting incredible players. And so that's where we have to look at this and say, okay, best player available coming through on the draft. Now, as far as what's going on here, I am not the draft expert. I'm not going to try and pretend that I am. I rely on others to do that. I'm going to be getting focused on this more the course of this week and things to get ready for this. But this is an interesting take on the Pat McAfee show about the quarterback situation. Something we kind of just touched on a little bit is, do you believe in these quarterbacks? Do you believe that one of these guys are going to, other than Cam Ward, are going to be the franchise quarterback that I can build a team around? Or is this going to be the 21 draft all over again where you look at it and say, there were 4 quarterbacks taken in the top 11, and only one of them is still a starter. Only one. And you have questions about him because he's one of the top turnover players in the NFL. But he does have a second highest contract. I'll give you that one, though, too. So do you believe in these guys? And that's the question of people looking and saying, maybe I don't believe in him. Maybe I'm better suited getting me a great tackle or a great, wide receiver, and we'll try and figure out something else with the quarterback. We'll have to deal with that later. Because there is some philosophy where you look at it, like the Rams, that kind of built their whole team. They had Jared Goff, but they weren't sold on Jared Goff. But they built the team and the roster around him, and then they said, let's go out and get a veteran to plug in here. And they got Matthew Stafford, and they rode it to a Super Bowl. There is something to say of, let's build up a great team and then go get the quarterback, instead of taking a chance and using a lot of draft capital on a guy that you really don't believe in.
Question marks in this draft than ever that we have covered. Now, obviously, you've been around the game a lot longer than us. Is that an accurate assessment? I feel like nobody knows what the hell's happening, and then this Derek Carr news gets dropped on us within the last few days and adds a whole nother wrinkle. Are we looking at it the same way as you, Peter?
Makes it a really interesting draft. I wouldn't
Very
say
interesting.
It's rich with first, top tier blue chip prospects, but that makes it all the more, I guess, interesting when we get to Thursday. I gotta tell you, like, we're talking Shedeur Sanders all day on this network. I don't know where Shedeur Sanders goes. I don't have a certain team raising their hand saying, hey, if Shedeur falls, like, that's our place. And that's a prospect that we're talking about constantly. You go name by name, and really there's only 2 blue chip prospects across the board when I talk to these GMs, and that's Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, and then Ashton Genty's one of those guys, but you wouldn't draft him likely in the top 3. Other than that, it's wide open. And I had a GM tell me, who Jacksonville takes at 5, you could easily see, at 17 or 18. After you get out of those top 3, it's not that it's a drop off, it's that it kind of plateaus, and it's, well, what do you need? What do you want? Who did you like? Which makes the draft all the more interesting. Last year, we knew there were quarterback hungry teams. You kind of match with who might go where, and I knew the top 3 was set, 9 days out. We're now 9 days out. Outside
we
of
don't know.
thinking, it goes Ward, Carter, Hunter, and some combo in the top 3. Pat, I could tell you with great confidence that I am not alone. Nobody knows where it goes from there. And really, what's so interesting is that after the 1 quarterback, Cam Ward, you've got a wide open list of possibilities as to the teams that are drafting quarterbacks, where they're drafting quarterbacks, and on what day they're going to end up getting a quarterback.
How many of those quarterbacks are in the conversation? Because Shador was considered the clear-cut number 2 quarterback in this draft class behind Cam Ward. Then Jackson Dart's name seemingly gathered a lot of steam. Now Jalen Milroe allegedly has a private workout with the New York Giants this week as well. I'm a fan because I watched him in a playoff run, even though he had a bad combine, of Will Howard. There's a lot of different potential outcomes for a lot of these different quarterbacks. Are you saying that the teams are viewing it the same way? Is there a set list on who's above where, or it's kind of scattered across the board?
Unlike any other year, it's wide open. And I think the Kenny Pickett year is unfair to these guys because I think this is a better class than that. And that was Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis and what was his name from Cincinnati?
Ritter.
Ritter. That was that draft class, and those guys kind of fizzled out. This year's draft class, like I spoke to a GM who I really trust and is really good, and he's like, well, if you're looking for the best pure thrower of the ball, it's Tyler Shuck out of Louisville. And I'm like, Tyler Shuck, and I'm looking at my list, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I'm looking at this list here on your board, and there are several other names, and Tyler Shuck's not one of them. Another GM I was talking to over the weekend, as I'm watching the Masters and just texting everybody and on calls about the draft, and he's like, I could easily see Milroe going late first. He's like,
this is going to be crazy.
Deal where you have a starter already, and then you put Milroe in for some subset packages, and then 2-3 years, who knows? Jalen Milroe's your guy, and he's been learning for a year. And Milroe is, well, he was benched against South Florida a year ago. And this is where you're at. So I don't think it's a sure thing that Shador is the second quarterback taken. I would imagine that's what's going to happen. I would assume that's going to happen. I don't see Jackson Dart or Shuck or Milroe going before Shador. But anything can happen with this class, and we could look at 2 quarterbacks taken in the first round. We can look at 4 quarterbacks going in the first round, and that's not me pleading the fifth and being like, I don't want anything on my hands. I am just telling you that is what's being discussed with teams. But different than other years, they're not banging down my door to be like, what are you hearing? Like, do we need to do something to get Shador? It's not like anyone's doing flips over any of these other guys.
Greatest mock drafter in the history of mock drafting. We're talking to Peter Schrager. Obviously has
that's crazy. It's
well,
crazy. You just don't know.
If I could. Has inside conversations with every team. That's why his mock draft is so spectacular. Sounds like question marks and chaos everywhere next Thursday night. Go ahead, AJ.
Shregs, yeah, we're all going to be watching to see what happens with Shador. Have you heard, is there any kind of like basement of where, like, hey, if he gets to this point, someone's definitely going to take him? Is there a number? We've seen that.
Here's the thing. He had a really good meeting with Pittsburgh last week, and that lasted like 5 hours, and he met with Arthur. The culture, the city, of course, that you guys know so well. But, the Giants are going to this private workout, and Schefter broke that news last night. This is not just window dressing. Here's the deal. The Giants had 13 different people at his pro day. So if you had it wasn't just 2 of them, 13. They had him in for a top 30 visit. Then they took him out to dinner. Joe Shane himself went to multiple Shador Sanders games this year. Joe Shane went to a Shador Sanders practice at Colorado. So this isn't a player they're unfamiliar with. So when you tell me they're going for another private workout, it's more than just due diligence. This is, we are going to make sure if he is our quarterback, we are 100% certain that this is the guy we love. But that doesn't mean he's going 3 to the Giants. What that could mean is the Giants get Abdul Carter out of Penn State, number 3.
And then trade
and
back
Shador
up.
Starts slipping out of the top 10, out of the teens. Maybe that's when they pull the trigger and they say, you know what? We really feel comfortable with this guy as our quarterback. We might not want him at 3, but we like him at 15, 16, 17 in that.
Put him back on the
Retire.
map.
That means something people might have been.
Hunter, obviously the Heisman winner. What are you hearing about the people you talk to in the know? What position he will prime ways, but what are you hearing as far as
An opinion? I spoke to one team who said I put him at wide receiver. He's the number one wide receiver in this draft, and he's got put him in the same conversation because of it, and he is by far, bar none, the best defensive back in this draft. However, can you at number 2 justify I'm going to put him on the field at both positions? I'm going to have him as our number 1 or 2 wide receiver and then also have him play defensive back. You can if you draft him second overall. This guy played 120 snaps a game last year. I mean, insane. Considered this two-way player, this special teams demon. Charles was like, safety, move to wide receiver. We were 2 wide receiver, and that is a legitimate possibility. That is how.
So we heard originally, I think it was Schefter said that the Browns are taking a quarterback at number 2. Browns are taking a quarterback at number 2. That was like a month ago, 2 months ago, whatever it was, before all the draft cycle kind of takes place, before all the meetings and everything. Now it's almost like if Travis Hunter's available and your team doesn't take him, you're an idiot. Is that kind of the view in Cleveland? And then if that is the case, Flacco's his quarterback in Cleveland with Travis Hunter, or does that lead to the Kirk Cousins move that everybody kind of is assuming is going to take place from Atlanta to Cleveland?
Well, let's put Travis Hunter in Cleveland now. If we were to pencil him in, and you say, "Oh, Joe Flacco," and we could have our thoughts about Flacco.
I love Joe Flacco. It did not work in Indianapolis, but I love Joe Flacco. I have his cleats here.
There you go.
I even have Joe Flacco's cleats here. They move. They move with it, rock with it, lean with it, with the grass. Okay, Flacco wasn't great with the Colts, but with the Browns,
not great with the Colts. Guess what? He wasn't good with the Jets. He wasn't good with the Broncos.
He didn't get an opportunity.
The one place that
but
he
he
was
was
good.
great with the Browns. Took him to the playoffs.
He was great. He was great with the Browns, and he was great with Stefanski. And if you tell me that you have Flacco throwing the ball 40 times a game deep, and he's throwing it to Travis Hunter, Jerry Jeudy, and David Njoku, you could compete. You could play. That said, you're not tied to Flacco. You're not tied to Pickett. In that you could take Hunter at 2. And you could trade back into the first round with this draft. I'm telling you, there are not these home run plays where like, I will not move out of 11 or I will not move out of 12. It's not like that this year. There is a lot of parity when you're talking about after prospect 4 to prospect 30, and you could justify any of them. So if you need a quarterback and you really like Shedeur Sanders and you're Cleveland, you could probably get both of them. You could do what Houston did and not have to give up the farm to do it, but you could take your number 1 defensive player and your number 1 offensive player, and you can get both of them in this draft. I think back to the Lamar Jackson draft. It's almost ancient history now, but they took Hayden Hurst with a pick 22nd overall. They took a tight end. And then DaCosta moved up, and then they went up and they got Lamar at 32nd because they saw a window to go get this guy. That could be Cleveland, where they're like, we have our quarterback. We could compete with Flacco or Pickett. We could compete. We could get it. We could. I don't know if they're going to win anything. They could put a football team on the field. If you want to worry about quarterback, and you don't have to take one at 2. And I think where Adam was in the beginning of the month, it was like they're going to probably get a rookie quarterback at some point. Since then, things have changed. Joe Flacco is signed, and also I think the quarterback class is not viewed as one of those where you need to take the guy at 2.
Okay, on that note, when you're talking about moving back in with a couple different teams, Ty has a question for you.
Yeah, in terms of trades as a whole, Schrags, what are you hearing? Like, how active do you think we're going to be? Field, Yates, and Mel Kiper in their most recent mock draft had the Browns trading back up to 29 to get Jackson Dart. We heard Dan Morgan say today, like, hey, listen, we're open for business. We're listening to calls if anyone wants to come up. And then in Field and Mel's mock draft, they've had a bunch of different other trades mocked.
Seeing Matthew Golden. Are we locked in on Matthew Golden?
Or are you expecting there to be quite a bit of action on draft night?
When we were in Vegas that year for the draft, I think there was like 15 trades in the first round. I asked a head coach, I said, what are you hearing? Do you think it's going to be one of those? And he said, this is the stick and pick draft. I go, okay, well, that's not as exciting. He's like, I don't see the prospects where people are going to be jockeying in the first round to go up and get players. The quarterback position makes it interesting. So there are those sweet spots, right? New Orleans, obviously, if Derek Carr is not going to be there, there's a need at quarterback, unless you're going to just roll out Rattler and say, we'll roll the dice and then maybe get Arch Manning next year, which who knows, could be a possibility. But 9 seems like a spot, a pressure point for that. And of course, the Steelers or the Giants or the Browns could be teams that are maneuvering to move up and make that pick. I look across this list of logos, though, And like, I don't see the Raiders taking a quarterback. They signed Geno to an extension. It's like they're not picking him to only have him there for 1 year. And you go across the board, it seems like everyone's pretty much spoken for. So Steelers, Browns, Saints, and I would put in I would probably say the Jets are a possibility to get back in the first round if they're desperate to get a quarterback or they want to have one in addition to Justin Fields. That's kind of what you're looking at. And to me, there's not enough burning hot desire to move up to get one of these quarterbacks where we're going to see a ton of jockeying to do so.
This is going to get interesting. Yeah, this is going to get interesting. But this is a time of year where you're playing. I know nothing. Okay, you don't want people to have any idea what you really want to do, because if they do, they know that you're desperate to get a quarterback. Then it's going to end up meaning they know that you want what I got, and I'm going to try and get a little bit extra out of you. And so this is where people are going to make sure, I don't really need a quarterback. But the Giants sure have done a whole lot of homework on Ceedee Sanders. And so if all of a sudden Ceedee gets taken by the Giants and Cam Ward is number one, and then Abdul Carter starts to fall possibly, if and so forth, or Travis Hunter, then you're going to see the mad dash for people to possibly move up to get one of those guys or to get a quarterback. And then the draft just bust wide open. So we'll have to wait and see what happens in there. But it's going to be interesting, and we're definitely have to watch how this shapes up. As always, good people, I appreciate you. Peace out.
I can't stand it anymore. I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Stewardess, please let me handle this.
I've got to get
Calm down. Now get back to your seat. I'll take care of this. Calm down. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Doctor, you're wanted on the phone. Everything's going to be all right. Please,
Sister, please, I'll handle this.
yourself.